Hello, Mavs fans. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. I am Kirk Anderson, joined by Josh Bowe. We are coming to you on April 2nd. It is a Wednesday night. The Dallas Mavericks just beat the Atlanta Hawks in I don't know. I had a great time, to be quite honest with you. It was a really fun basketball game, capped off by an Anthony Davis game winner. The Mavericks won 120 to 118. Josh, how you doing?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for moments for a fan base to be happy about something, I mean, that's probably the best. This was probably the best night since the trade.
Right. I mean, since the Rockets
legitimate,
first half.
yeah, yeah, since the Rockets first half.
Yeah.
I mean, what more can you ask for? Anthony Davis balls out. It's a game winner. I mean, there's probably a little more you could ask for. You could probably ask for a little more defense, but otherwise, yeah, that was a fun game.
Well, yeah, so let's kind of get into this. This was a first half where the Mavericks. So the Hawks were playing on the second night of a back-to-back. The Hawks are effectively playing for nothing. They're locked into a play-in spot, and the East is somehow more of a nuclear holocaust compared to the West, where it's just like those 7 through 10, it's just awful. Everything is awful. These games, in theory, I'm surprised that like anybody's doing anything. People are sitting guys out left and right. It just did not look like it was going to be a very good game, where the Mavericks, in all honesty, probably should have ran the Hawks off the floor because they got beat. The Hawks got destroyed by Portland last night at home, had to hop on a plane and come to Dallas. Instead, talk to us about the first half. What happened in the first half? Because you watched this game more closely than I did.
There just wasn't any defense. I don't know.
Lively returned.
Yeah, Derek Lively returned, which was good.
What happened with the defense? Like, what was going on there then?
I mean, it's kind of what we saw, similar to the Nets game. It wasn't as extreme, but you know, if you've got two bigs, why would you challenge those guys at the rim a ton? And they spread the Mavericks out. Anthony Davis had a great game, but he does not, in his current condition, he does not really want to guard outside the paint too much. So get him on switches, get Lively out of the paint if you spread the floor a little bit. I mean, they had Okongwu took 4 3-pointers. I forgot he takes threes now. I think he averages like 2 threes a game. So, I mean, Atlanta was playing a lot of 5 out at times. So they were trying to get the Mavericks rim protectors out of the paint as much as they could, and then trying to go from there. I mean, Atlanta took 27 shots in the restricted area. Now here's the thing: the Mavericks guarded pretty well there. Kind of after mostly in the second half, Atlanta was 11 of 27 in the restricted area, so that's very bad. So Dallas kind of got its act together in the second half. And really, I mean, this would have been a blowout if Anthony Davis didn't miss pretty much the entire second quarter, because that's really the only quarter Atlanta did anything substantial. Obviously, the fourth quarter they made a run, but Davis got hurt, I think, right at the end of the first quarter, where he got hit in the face. He was off the floor, I think, from until like the final seconds of the second quarter, and Atlanta outscored Dallas 38-35. In the second quarter. Like, if Davis plays in the second quarter, I mean, maybe it's still a close game, but they might be up at half and they might have like a 10-point lead going into the fourth instead of having to kind of rally back and forth. When Davis was on the floor, they were generally playing okay. And then the bench was good too.
Yep. And it looks, you know, the fourth quarter was pretty horrible. It felt like elements of playoff basketball for both teams, where there were just long stretches of no scoring for either team.
The best stat of the night, I think, is Atlanta went on a 22-7 run over the course of 8 minutes, and for 4 of those minutes they made 0 field goals. They went on 22-7 run. I heard that. I was on the broadcast. Shout out to the Mavericks broadcast for having that. That was hilarious.
I mean, the Mavericks got up by 12 points.
Yeah, this game was over.
This game was over, and then, as is the want of these particular Dallas Mavericks, let me just go figure out what the score was. Yeah, it was 108-96. All right, this is 10 minutes left. 10 minutes is an eternity in a Dallas Mavericks basketball game, but from the 10-minute mark to the 8-minute mark, the Hawks closed it from a 12-point game and made it a 3-point game.
That's a lot of points in 2 minutes.
Right. And then, the Mavericks once again punched him in the mouth. There was a really cool sequence where Anthony Davis it was Najee Marshall makes a pull up at about the 6-minute mark. And then Klay Thompson hits a 21-footer, like right inside the 3-point line from Najee Marshall, gives the Mavericks a 5-point boost. That's at about 4 minutes. And over this time, the Hawks just aren't scoring. Like they went 4 or 5 solid minutes without scoring a single point. They got to 110 and couldn't break it. And so if you're watching this game, you're like, all right, the Mavericks are going to win. They're going to put the Hawks out of their misery. Then the problem was the Mavericks couldn't score. And the Hawks scored 8 straight to give them a 118-115 lead. Then Klay Thompson hits a really dope 3-pointer to tie the game at 118. The Mavericks shut down the Hawks offensive, just they put Trey in jail, and then a really bad turnover from the Hawks from Dyson Daniels, just basically got stuck on an island driving too hard at the basket. Mavericks turn it over, and then they did the I want to talk about Anthony Davis post-ups like a rational human being in a little bit, but the Mavericks posted up Anthony Davis in the Dirk spot, and then the Hawks fouled him. And then the Mavericks after the timeout, they used a timeout, and the Mavericks got Anthony Davis on the move using his athleticism. And I really can't put too fine a point on this. I've been pretty tough on Anthony Davis. That game winner was a awesome move. Awesome shot. Even if it didn't go in, I probably would have said that was the right play to make. He drives left from the kind of free throw line extended area over on the right side of the floor, drives all the way over to the left, gets to about the mid post, and it's not a jump shot, but it was an incredible drive. And he shooting right-handed while going left. It was, you got to watch it from multiple angles kind of to get the gist. It just sort of showed you that when he's on his offensive game, he looks like one of the best players alive.
Yeah. That shot was awesome. I think he's really like you said, he's really good. His face-up game is pretty elite. Like that mid-post face-up game.
I hate the fades.
He takes a lot of jumpers. I don't know if our Lakers friends and maybe even some Pelicans people can tell me if I'm wrong. But I don't know if this is just because he's hurt, but he shoot this is the most I've watched Anthony Davis ever.
Sure.
I watch him national TV games, but I'm not watching him all the time. So this is the most I've been exposed to him since I've really been watching basketball. He shoots a lot of jumpers, and I don't know if that's because he's hurt. He
does shoot a lot of jumpers. And what
happens? He shot 5 mid-rangers, and then he shot kind of he shot 8 in the paint outside the restricted area, which were, some of those are floaters, but a lot of those were also jumpers. And then he shot 3 threes. And I just don't remember him shooting that many jumpers before. And then, I had someone in my mentions say that's kind of his Achilles heel is he falls in love with the jumper a little too much, but he was making them tonight.
What ends up happening with him, and the game log will bear this out. You should go look at his game log from earlier this year. Cause I was kind of stunned when Mark Folwell read his stats coming from the Lakers, 25 and 11. So you look at the raw numbers and you're like, man, this dude's dope. But then you go look at his game log, and what ends up happening is he has stretches of 6 to 8 games where the jumper is falling and he looks like a world beater. And then the jumper leaves him for 6, 8, 10, 12 games. And his game just looks different. He's less impactful. It's very odd. Because he when they won the championship in 2020, they're playing in an empty gym, and he shot beyond better from 3 than he shot in any situation in his life. I think it was north of 40% for the playoffs. And that was kind of the secret key, other than the fact that the Lakers fouled everybody to death in the bubble, as to why they won. So what's going to be interesting is as he is the Mavericks offensive focal point this season and heading into the next, what sort of shots he ends up taking the most. It's going to be worth watching for us, because I like a face-up game. Jeff Skin Wade made a Dirk Nowitzki reference, which made me throw the remotes. We're not doing that. He's not that kind of shooter. but that he is that kind of athlete. So that's what was so, and not like a Dirk. He's a much better athlete than Dirk. That's not what I mean. But he has like the face-up game to where when he attacks, it makes the defense sort of freak the fuck out.
And he's so much quicker usually than the guy that's guarding him.
And I think he's such a good basketball player that he does fall in love with that jumper. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah. And I mean, another thing is, he's playing the 4. He's always wanted to play the 4. He hates playing center. He's going to play the 4 here because the Mavericks have 2 really good centers. He's been playing mostly the 4 since the trade in his limited games. It's cute, he's going to have to shoot. If he's going to play the 4 a lot, he has to make jumpers. Like, because there's not going to be, if his face up and drive game, you can't really face up and drive from the mid post when you've got a center in the dunker spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the spacing just isn't there for that. So he's going to have to hit jumpers, and he did tonight. And it's not really a criticism. Like if he can do that,
fine.
Then that's what he needs to do.
It opens up the rest of the offense for other people.
Yeah.
And
that's how you start drawing doubles and all that good stuff.
And the Mavericks shooting tonight really speaks to and again, we're not dumping on the win. A win is important, but they shot lights out.
They really did. Atlanta sucks. No disrespect. The Mavericks needed a win in the worst way.
Well, but that's actually, I'm glad you kind of talked about that. And maybe it's, where are we at right now? We're at about 12 minutes. Okay, I want to come back to that in a second here. We're going to insert some ads. Those of you who follow the show a little more closely know that we've moved to a new podcast network, Odyssey. I'm going to insert some ads right here. If you could do us a favor, listen to those ads. Really helps Josh and I. It's like probably the main way you can actually help our show directly is by listening to the ads and not skipping through them, because those are measurable things. And Josh and I will be right back. Really professional podcasting here, where I just go silent on a live show for 10 seconds. Sorry, guys. We appreciate you guys hanging out and listening to those ads. If you are still hanging out with us here on the YouTube, we go live after every game. We have a couple more late games this weekend, Friday, Saturday. I am going to be running solo, which means I'm not near as good at this as Josh. So I will be doing a Mavs party or a group therapy where you can come and join the show. So go ahead and put that on your calendars. We will go live right after the game. We can talk about the Clippers game. We can talk about the playoff hunt. We can talk about kind of whatever in the world you want to. It's a lot of fun, and you should consider joining the show. What did I start talking about right before I kind of cut us off? I already can't remember.
We were talking about Davis. God, you were about to make a point.
I knew what I was. Okay, so the Kings, the Sacramento Kings, a travesty to basketball, lost to the Washington Wizards, which is very hard to do. The Wizards have no interest in winning.
They're trying to lose.
So the Mavericks tonight, the win tonight was very important to the NBA standings, at least as far as the Mavericks are concerned. I still get really stupidly confused by the play-in. Like, I had Jordan write a post about it today, and I still don't entirely understand. The Mavericks now have if I'm reading this correctly, a 2-game lead on the Kings for the 9 seed, right? The Mavericks are 38 and 39. The Kings are 36 and 40. They at least have a game and a half lead. Is that?
Yeah. They have a game and a half lead up on the Kings, and then they're about 2.5 up on the Suns.
They cannot catch the 8 seed. That's not a thing.
No,
so
they're 4 games back of 8th.
They are essentially locked in to the play-in.
Yes.
It's a question of whether they can hold on to 9 or 10. If they do finish as the 9th seed, they get a home game against the 10th seed.
Right.
Yes?
Yep. So they're playing for a home game because they're not going to get out of 9 or 10.
What happens if they win that game?
Then they play the loser of the 7-8 game.
So what if they win and then they lose? What happens?
Then they're done.
They have to win 2 in a row?
They have to win 2 in a row to make the 8th seed. That's the highest seed they could get.
Okay.
So 7-8 plays. Winner of that is the 7th seed. Loser goes and plays the winner of 9-10. The winner of that game is the 8th seed. Loser.
The 9-10 game, if the Mavericks stay in 9, would be a home game
against the Kings, most likely.
Okay.
Then they would. Oh, sorry. And then if they win, they would be playing a road game against either the Clippers.
Depends. There's
Yeah,
a big morass.
it'd be a road game against either the Clippers, Timberwolves, Grizzlies, or Warriors.
So here's where this gets really funky. The Mavericks are playing the Clippers twice, Friday and Saturday. The Clippers have every incentive to beat the shit out of the Mavericks and try to get out of the play-in.
Yep.
Yes?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
And they're only they're a half game away from 6 seed. So yes, they're very much they're in it to get out of the play-in. They're still.
That's spicy. Sure. And so, but then the other additional fun part about that is if they don't get out of the play-in, the Mavericks could play the Clippers anyway.
Right.
In the play-in if they win the first one. So it's really, it's you see the sex appeal for it if you're the NBA. Now, if you're a big-time NBA fan who doesn't really follow the Mavericks specifically, you're probably looking at both of these play-in races and you're like, this is an affront to basketball. Because like none of these teams are good. They're right. Just not good.
They're playing for the chance to get swept by the Thunder.
Right. And there's a real appeal to the Mavericks playing the Thunder.
Yeah.
Just because the Mavericks, the Thunder have lost 12 times and the Mavericks have given them 3 of those losses, which is a riot.
Yeah.
It's a very different Mavericks team.
Yeah. I mean, I could go on a rant about the play-in. Like I hate the play-in, or at least this form of the play-in. I hate that the 10th seed is like there's no honor.
It's never happening.
No, the 10th seed, I don't think the 10th seed's never made it out of the play-in. They never probably will, because the 10th seed is a very bad, like, I get 8, 9, like maybe wanting to make that a little spicy because you'll definitely have 9 seeds that come right down the stretch and they miss out. But the 10th seed is almost universally an awful team. Mm-hmm. It's always an awful team. Like, why do you want to reward awful teams with this playoff stuff? And then it just makes it silly because, like, remember when the Mavericks were trying to chase the 10th seed in 2023, and it's like, they just missed out on the playoffs. And it's like, no, they were the 11th seed. They were a bad team. They did not miss out on they barely missed out on the play-in is not the playoffs. It's just
no.
Because now it makes it think in your head, you're like, so they just missed out on being they missed out on being the 10th seed, which is,
and then they would have had to win 2 games in a row.
Yeah,
and at that point, the Mavericks hadn't won 2 games in a row in like a month.
It makes the dialogue so silly because it makes it seem like finishing 10th in your conference is honorable, and it is not. That is not an honorable thing. You're a bad team if you're the 10th seed. That's all I want to say. Now, sometimes the play-in games are good theater, so I get it, but like I wish it was more like 8. The bubble kind of did it where it was like 8 and 9, and you also had to be within a certain number of games. Like if you were like a bad team, like it wasn't automatic. I think in the bubble you had to be within like a game or 2. Like I would like that more. Like reward the teams that are actually competing and not these. I mean, for the most part, like tanking. Like the Bulls traded. They were trying to end their season, and they're gonna have to play a playoff type game. It's just funny. Like I don't know why you should reward those teams.
This is a fun comment. It's worth discussing. On Twitter, The Chosen Was said the Mavs have missed half their team this whole year. This is where the play-in comes in handy. You are acting like the Mavericks are a bad team.
I did not say the Mavericks were a bad team. I said typically the 10th seed is a bad team. I didn't say specifically the Mavericks were a bad team.
Well, I'll say the Mavericks are a bad team. I'm just enjoying watching them. Like they lost to the fucking Brooklyn Nets 2 days ago, and they barely beat the Hawks tonight. They suck. That's okay. Like I get kind of confused about this because if you're having fun, that should, at this point, with how horrible this season has been, if you're having fun, that takes precedence over good or badness. Because above all else, the Mavs right now are really weird. And I have no idea what they could be like. Could they go out and beat Oklahoma City in game 1 of a 1-8 playoff series? Absolutely. Are they going to win 4 out of 7? No. That's okay. It's just, when they have injury luck like they've had, you sort of have to throw everything out, and they more or less have been bad. It's okay. It's okay to say that. They're competitive. They play hard. Like there were comments in the same gentleman had a comment about how this team seems much happier than pre and post trade. And like, I don't know how to read in. Like everybody hates. Like these guys hate everything in February. Like, I mean, I where I get kind of progressively frustrated about the Mavericks is like Jason Kidd didn't do a lick of coaching from January 26th until the day Luka was traded. He did no coaching. He sucks. Fuck him. And if you don't believe me, go watch the tapes because Spencer Dinwiddie had like a 32% usage rate for like 6 weeks. Like what? That was the decision that they made with everything because Kyrie wasn't playing a ton, and then it's a mess. But if you want to salvage game to game stuff, like if tonight was a lot of fun for you, and it was for me, like I had a good time. It's good. It's good. Yeah. That's what it ought to be.
Oh yeah. I also don't know that the Mavericks look happier now than they did pre-trade. Like, I'm sorry, that I don't know. That's kind of a little BSy to me because
I can see they're
before the trade they were what were they? They were 20. They were
19 and 10.
19 and 10, and they were walloping teams like they were playing like I don't know. I don't understand. They were a great team. They were having a ton of fun. They were kicking the shit out of teams, and then they got hurt, and then they made the trade. Like, yeah, they look happier now than they did a month ago when the whole team was hurt. Like, duh. But pre-trade, they were a very good, content, gelling team until the injuries hit. So I don't want to hear that like they were like some mopey, malcontent team until the Luka trade.
No, it's just it's a season you throw out.
They were one of the best teams in the league until they got hurt, and then they made the Luka trade. They got more hurt, and now they're not as hurt. And yeah, of course they're gonna look better now. But
they definitely
I take offense to saying that they weren't a happy team pre-trade. That's bullshit.
This is another good question from the chat. Jacob asks, "Do you have any thoughts on the double big lineups?" And so the double big, so Anthony Davis and a center, of their variations of centers. I like it. It's weird. I have no idea how effective it's going to be. Their guard play right now is so yeesh that it relies on Spencer Dinwiddie becoming incredible.
And they're honestly lucky that Dinwiddie is playing as well as he's been playing.
He's playing way ahead of his skis. Like shout out to Spencer Dinwiddie.
Do you know like look at his game log for March? Mm-hmm. Like it's kind of insane. Considering where he was before that. And imagine if he wasn't doing that, like where they would be with their guard situation.
But to answer the question,
yeah,
it's something enough.
It's interesting
to where it's interesting, and we're gonna get 2 more games. We're gonna get these Clippers games where they're gonna have everybody available to play, which is something. And then there's the Lakers game, and like with everybody being healthy, insofar as this team can be healthy with the guys that aren't out for the year, the Lakers game is super weird in a fun way. Like I was kind of worried Luka would come in and just blow the doors off, but the Lakers can't guard the Mavericks. Now the Mavericks can't guard the Lakers. So
yeah.
There's fun stuff to see.
It's a lot of teams it's kind of like a low-key trend that some teams are starting to size up a little bit, and double bigs isn't as rare as it was a season or 2 or 3 seasons ago. But I mean, there's no other team that has a 4 or 5 starting lineup like the Mavericks, really. I mean, maybe the only other team is Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Cleveland and OKC. I keep forgetting that they have Hartenstein now, which is mistake on my part. Boston, if they ever play Porzingis and Horford together, but they usually don't. But yeah, like it's interesting because it's a little different. It's not, everyone talks about how homogenous the NBA is. Like the Mavericks are certainly not playing like every other team. And you're seeing the pros and cons. The pros, no one scores on the paint against them. Like that's just kind of how it is, and that's what happened tonight. Con, they can't really guard in space. Teams are making threes on them. Teams are making mid-range jumpers on them. That's another key point as well. The Mavericks probably are okay with team shooting.
I think they can clean. Yeah, they want the mid-range.
But they're also getting, like, not all mid-range shots are created equal. Like, I don't think you can just say this is a mid-range shot and it is bad no matter what because it is a mid-range shot. Like there are
Right.
guards that get there are comfortable mid-range looks that teams are okay with and are actually efficient shots. So that's the problem. But they're gonna have to figure out how to guard in space, and it's gonna be hard when your starting guards are Dinwiddie and Klay Thompson. You're trying to guard in space with two bigs, and then those are your two starting guards. So that's why you saw a lot of Caleb Martin tonight, who was really good who was really good defensively. He's probably gonna have to play
good
a lot.
defensively. I've been really mean about him. He was really good defensively.
No, yeah, he had Trey bottled up in the fourth
Mhm.
quarter.
Yep.
So yeah, like that's cool. Like the double big lineup, like it's different. I think what's really interesting is that all three of them seem to be like okay passers, Gafford, Davis, and Lively for their position. Like that Lively alley-oop to Anthony Davis was awesome. Like that's the kind of stuff that it's like, okay, if they could do this, they're gonna unlock some pretty cool, funky stuff.
And there's just no. So if you're a Mavs optimist, you're about them getting to the 8th seed and playing the Nuggets not Nuggets, the Thunder for 7 games. There's just no tape on these guys. Like that's
helps.
where them being hurt, you just throw everything out because it's like, Spencer's going to pound the shit out of the ball. You go, Najee Marshall's going to do weird shit. And then after that, you really don't have anything because PJ is not going to be playing the way he's played. I certainly hope they can continue to find ways to get PJ the ball in the post and let him operate out of there. But we're going to see like some, I don't know, like maybe it's worth like hearkening back to like the 2009, 2010 Lakers that had, Lamar, Odom playing some small forward, Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum. Like they're maybe they're going to be doing some big to big touches stuff that we just I hope we see more of it because it is weird in a way that I like watching.
And here's the big thing to watch. So Najee Marshall, who was the biggest beneficiary of all the injuries in terms of his production and his numbers, like he turned into the number one option for the team, and he's been scoring ridiculous rate in the paint. We talked about that last podcast. Here are his point totals and shot attempts since in the games that Anthony Davis has played with Anthony Davis returning. So the first Brooklyn game was good, 22 points, 15 shots. Then Orlando, 6 points, 5 shots. Chicago, 14 points, 14 shots. Brooklyn again, 8 points, 7 shots. Tonight, Hawks, 6 points, 6 shots. He had scored before Davis returned. He had scored in double figures in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He had scored 15 points or more in 9 straight games. Actually, he had scored 15 points or more in 9 straight games. Since Davis has returned, he's been under 15 points in 1, 2, 3, 4, in 5 of 7 games. So, and that was the worry for me was Najee is taking advantage of all that space because they were playing basically 5 out with no bigs. Now there's 2 bigs. Where's his space going to come from to score in the paint? So they have to figure that out because, if you want to take this team at face value and be like, hey, how can they make noise in the playoffs? Because, let's be real, they've won 1 game against a team over 500 since February 13th. You have to win 4 out of 7 against a team over 500 to win a playoffs, And I know it's not realistic for them to win a playoff series, but if we're going to talk about this, we have to talk about, okay, if there's even a monicum sliver chance that they can pull off some sort of upset, if they get out of the play-in, what do they got to do? Well, they got to figure that part out. They got to figure out how Najee Marshall can still be effective with the double big lineup.
I want to see. So I just looked at Anthony Davis's assists, and I think if you're going to operate through Anthony Davis as an offensive focal point, maybe not but I want to see him put in situations that are different than isolation. Like his passing is actually quite good. We've talked about that.
I want to see big pick and rolls, like Lively setting screens for Davis or Gafford setting screens for Davis.
Because tonight's game winner from Anthony Davis, he is a right-handed player who drove 30 feet with his left hand as a power forward. Yeah. Obviously, all these guys are super skilled. Still really awesome. I don't know. I'm trying not to be like a psychopath about this, but I I'm a lapsed big man. You're a big man. I think we value what big man can do. I mean, one of my friends in a group chat, we were arguing today, just kind of about basketball, and he said that he was trying to make the argument. I think he's right that the illegal defense rules basically made big man was kind of a cheat code for an effective big man because you couldn't be doubled. You couldn't get the double the way that you can now. Anyway, I don't want to see weird big to big stuff. It's they're high percentage shots. It's the oop from Lively to AD was just one example. Let's do more of that. Who cares? Throw it all out there.
They got to figure that out. And then the other thing I wanted to say before we close is the fourth quarter offense being really stinky is kind of like that's kind of what happens when a player like Anthony Davis is your best player. Because you think about the Mavericks were watching Luka, you don't struggle to get the ball into Luka's hands because he is the initiator. Davis is not an initiator. He is more of a play finisher than a play starter. And you saw down the stretch in the fourth quarter, they just couldn't even get him the ball because he was, the way the Hawks were defending it and shading it. And the Mavericks don't have great guards right now with Dinwiddie and Clay, can kind of be a little hit or miss at times.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the point, was you never, with Luka, you never had to worry about him getting a shot or getting the ball because he's the guard, he's the point guard. Davis isn't the point guard. He has to be set up to some degree. Not necessarily he has to be assisted on all of his makes, but to get the ball in the, he's not bringing the ball up the floor. So you have to get him the ball in the half court. And I saw them struggle to do that down the stretch in the fourth. So that's something they also have to figure out.
This is me being putting on my Dalton Trigg hat and being a total happy lunatic. But I mean, if they were to somehow become the 8th seed and play the Thunder, let Anthony Davis bring it up every third time. The Thunder just foul the bejesus out of you. And are you going to ask Chet Holmgren to guard Anthony Davis 65 feet from the basket? No. I'm getting way ahead of myself here on this, but it's just, I see some real weirdness that they should exploit. And if it fails, they go down doing stuff that's interesting. I don't want to see, Followell said something. I wasn't watching the game, but I heard it where he goes, Spencer Dinwiddie he's in rhythm heaves. And I'm I don't want a Spencer Dinwiddie heave. No, I want a Spencer Dinwiddie assist, not a heave. I want a Spencer Dinwiddie grift. Oh, well, this is, thanks for, getting half an hour out of this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also,
right, Josh and I sucks.
Yes. So Josh and I will be back on Saturday. I will be back on Friday. You guys look for me Friday night. I want you to join the show. I would do a live show tonight, but I'm tired.
Yeah.
And the games are late games. They're 2 9:30 games in a row, Friday, Saturday. So we're closing out in a weird way, everybody. The Friday, Saturday game, and then they have a break until the Laker game on Wednesday. So, you gotta soak up your Mavericks basketball because we could be looking at, no more than 6 games left, something like that. So take it in. All right, everybody, be good. This has been Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe. Thanks much for hanging out with us. Remember to subscribe, leave reviews, leave comments, all that good stuff. Everyone have a great rest of your week. See you Friday. Go Mavs.